If I told you there was a time in America when people wanted to be radioactive, you would probably assume it was satire. It wasn't. In the early 20th century, radioactive products were sold as health tonics, beauty treatments, and miracle cures. People drank radioactive water, they rubbed radioactive creams onto their skin, some even carried radioactive heating pads to bed. And for a brief period, one of the most valuable substances on Earth wasn't gold. It was radium. When Marie Curie discovered radium in 1898, the world became obsessed. Scientists were fascinated. Investors smelled opportunity. The public saw magic. Radium glowed in the dark. It seemed to produce endless energy. And because nobody fully understood the long-term dangers, people assumed it could only be good. Companies rushed to add radium to everything. Advertisements claimed it improved health, increased vitality, restored youth, and even cured disease. One radioactive water company sold more than 100,000 bottles before regulators finally intervened. To consumers, radium wasn't dangerous. It was modern. It was scientific. It was the future. Then came World War I. Suddenly, glowing paint had a practical purpose. Soldiers needed to read watches and instruments in complete darkness without revealing their positions. A luminous paint made with radium solved the problem. The demand exploded, and one company saw an opportunity worth millions. The US Radium Corporation opened factories dedicated to painting watch dials with glowing numbers. One of the most important facilities was located in Orange, New Jersey. Today it seems ordinary, but in the 1920s it sat at the center of a booming new industry. If you were a young woman looking for work, getting hired there felt like winning the lottery. Most factory jobs were exhausting. Workers spent long hours in noisy textile mills and dirty industrial workshops. Many earned barely $10 or $12 a week. The dial painters could make $30 or more. Adjusted for inflation, that was excellent money. The factory was clean. The work looked respectable. Parents approved, friends were jealous. And unlike many factory jobs, the workers were almost entirely women. The company called them artists. They painted tiny numbers onto watch faces using brushes so fine they looked like needles. The work required precision, a steady hand, and a perfect point on the brush, which created a problem. The brushes quickly lost their shape. Managers had a solution, a technique they taught every worker. 3 simple words: lip, dip, paint. Put the brush between your lips, sharpen the point, dip it into the glowing paint. Paint the dial, repeat, again and again and again. Hundreds of times every day. The women asked if the paint was safe. They were told yes. Not only safe, harmless. Some supervisors even encouraged them to have fun with it. Workers painted their fingernails, their dresses, their faces. Some painted their teeth before going dancing. At the end of the night, they glowed under the lights. Friends thought it looked beautiful. The women thought it was harmless. The company knew better. That is the part of the story that changes everything. Because while the workers handled radium with bare hands and put it directly into their mouths, scientists working with the same material often used protective equipment. Some researchers already suspected exposure was dangerous. Certain company officials knew enough to avoid unnecessary contact themselves. Yet the workers were never warned, and so they continued. Day after day, month after month, year after year. Among those workers was a young woman named Grace Fryer. By all accounts, she was energetic, social, and optimistic. Then the pain started. At first it seemed minor, a toothache, the kind of thing most people ignore. Eventually she visited a dentist. The tooth was removed, but something strange happened. The wound never healed. Instead it became infected. The pain spread. Soon her jaw began to deteriorate. Doctors were confused. They had never seen anything like it. One by one, her symptoms worsened. Teeth loosened, bones weakened, the damage spread throughout her body. And Grace was not alone. Other women from the factory began developing the same horrifying symptoms. Healthy young workers were becoming seriously ill. Some could barely walk. Others suffered fractures from simple movements. The company insisted there was no connection. The women were told they had unrelated illnesses. Some doctors blamed poor hygiene. Others suggested completely different causes. Meanwhile, the death toll grew. What doctors eventually discovered was Horrifying. Radium behaves like calcium. When it enters the body, bones absorb it. The skeleton effectively stores the poison. And because radium continuously emits radiation, the damage never truly stops. The women were being poisoned from the inside out. Their own skeletons had become the source of the attack. While workers were suffering, US Radium commissioned studies of the factory. One investigator, Cecil Drinker, examined conditions and quickly recognized the danger. His findings were clear. The workers faced serious risk. The company now had proof. A chance to warn employees. A chance to change procedures. A chance to save lives. Instead, the report was altered. The warnings were buried, and production continued. That decision transformed a tragedy into a scandal, because this was no longer ignorance, it was concealment. The women eventually realized nobody was coming to help them. If justice was going to happen, they would have to fight for it themselves. Grace Fryer began searching for legal representation. It took years. Many lawyers refused. The company was powerful. The science was complicated. The odds looked impossible. Eventually, she found attorney Raymond Berry. Together they launched a legal battle that would become one of the most important workplace safety cases in American history. By the time the case reached court, several of the women were dying. Some were too weak to stand. Others required assistance just to enter the courtroom. But the public was finally paying attention. Newspapers covered the story. The details shocked readers across the country. The image was impossible to ignore. A giant corporation, a group of dying workers, and evidence that the danger may have been known all along. Public opinion shifted rapidly. The company fought back. But the pressure was building. Eventually, settlements were reached. The Momen received compensation. But for many of them, it came too late. Grace Fryer died at just 34 years old. She never had the opportunity to enjoy the victory she helped create, yet her impact survived. The Radium Girls transformed workplace safety in America. Their case helped establish the principle that employers could be held responsible for the health and safety of their workers. Modern occupational safety standards trace part of their history back to this fight. Factories changed, regulations changed, corporate accountability changed. The women did not set out to become symbols. They simply wanted jobs. They trusted the people who employed them, and that trust was exploited. Today, the factories are gone. The executives are gone. Most of the people responsible have faded into history, but the story remains. And in a final twist that sounds almost impossible, some of the victims' remains continued emitting measurable radiation decades after their deaths. Long after the company disappeared, long after the lawsuits ended, the evidence never stopped glowing, and neither did their legacy.